Hi, Poonam. See, she joined us. Hey,
Hello.
good to see you.
So good to see you guys.
All right.
Okay, so I think, yes, we are live. We are live. Good. So I will just go ahead and welcome everybody in here. Hi, Poonam. Um, okay, so before we begin, my name is Cheyenne Farley, and I coordinate the Education and Community Action Programs for Academia Theater. And I'm so excited that you all have joined us over here, either in the Zoom meeting if you've registered, which is not too late to do for our future courses or future classes under this course, or if you're joining us over on Facebook Live. Thank you all. But I do want to take a quick moment to acknowledge the land that Academia operates on. This has been something that we've been doing lately, and I'm very proud of us for doing it. So really quick, I want to acknowledge the ancestral lands that Academia operates on, which are which are of the Kickapoo, the Caddo, Tibacone, and Wichita people, which is now called Dallas. However, the Comanches and Kiowa have also lived in this region, although it is not often considered their homeland. We acknowledge that Dallas is stolen land that was built with stolen labor. All of the work that Academia does is built respectively and built to validate the experiences of Black and Indigenous and people of color. So with that said, I do really appreciate everybody who's joined us this evening, and I will pass it over to Ernest very quickly, but first I'm going to introduce him. He is a wonderful friend of Academia, has worked with Academia for years, served as the curator for community action, and is a veteran activist for human rights, has counseled youth, and is just all around a phenomenal person. I have learned so much from him myself, and I'm excited for you all to learn from him this evening as well. So he's just going to introduce the course that we're going to be going through, as well as our different speakers that we're going to have, which is a great list of people. But also one quick thing before I pass it over, sorry, Ernest, I do also want to thank the National Endowment for the Arts, as well as the Office of Arts and Culture, whose funding we would not be able to do this program without. So thank you to them and all of our other donors who have donated during this difficult time. So I will go ahead and pass it over to you, Ernest. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Cheyenne. I really appreciate all you've done to make it happen today. I want to congratulate and salute Academia for acknowledging that we're sitting on, we're standing on stolen land and land that's been stolen from people who are living today and in a dire straits because of that. And for the memory of those who helped build this land, African-American and poor, enslaved, working people as well, who've never been compensated for their contributions. So thank you for honoring the presence of where we are today. I just want to start by saying, wow, it's good to see you guys here. We're small but mighty tonight, and I'm really honored that you took the time to be present with me and help share. So I'm welcoming any questions, any suggestions, any ideas you may have as we go forward. Also, I want to just admit that we're in a particular day and time when I know people are kind of exhausted, pretty much worn down. And I talked to a couple of friends of mine and said, man, we've been zoomed out, you know, and so just hanging in there and being a part of this is critical to us learning from each other. And so we were forced to close our last session because of lack of participation. And that was in October, November, October, what was it, Cheyenne?
Late October, early November. So you're right.
October, yeah, to November. So I was a little afraid. Poonam Dubal was a part of that. I just want to acknowledge you for being here tonight. You have such a wealth of experience and knowledge and a heart that's open to the people. So I'm appreciate any ideas you may share with us. But here we are tonight. We're holding our breath and going forward. So just release for one moment, relax for a second. I'm gonna take a deep breath and just honor this a moment that we find ourselves in today. And wherever we are, whatever's coming, whatever goes, that we're gonna be a part of that in the best way we can, wholeheartedly. So I just wanna thank you once all again, and I'm so grateful for my blood kin and my non-blood kin folks who gathered with us tonight. We're all connected. So let me just start off by saying that this course is probably more timely than when we had envisioned it months ago. We're now in a winter in more ways than one in America. We've come through a spring time of excitement with movement, people fighting for justice at unparalleled levels. I've been a part of the movement in the 60s, and I haven't seen anything like we've seen in the months of March, April, May, and June, perhaps. Throughout the world, throughout the country, hundreds of thousands of millions of people have joined together, calling for end of police repression, police violence, and social inequality, and the end of racism. So that is a fundamental shift I'm feeling. I hope you're feeling as well in the world. And our task now to continue and to go forward in new ways, build on our traditions as a people who've won victories during hard times and hardships, and who've been forced to sit back and retreat at times, but we're still here and we're still going forward. So just welcoming the phase that we're in. Hopefully we're going through another spring soon, but life is full of ups and downs, twists and turns, and we're going to get through it together. This course is designed to look at the movement we're in, not simply for activists and advocates for peace and justice, but for anyone dealing with personal lives and hardships, looking at building relationships in their family, in their homes, in their community, and throughout the world. So this is open to all. It may seem like we're talking about something specific for activists, but I want to assure you that we can learn from wherever we are and we can find something that applies to us. This course will be divided into 4 pieces, so to speak. The first course will be, we're going to look at how we go forward as with many different ethnic groups, with many different cultures. How can we go from building bridges from being solo or silos and little input pockets of people to becoming more integrated with one another, more allies and more aligned to work together. So I'm happy to say that we'll have Ty Defoe, who's a native of the Native First Nation, here born in the New York area and a part of the 2 nations, a nation of the Oneida and the Ojibwe peoples. He is a very talented person. He's in the arts with music and drumming and singing. He recently won a Grammy Award for a positive production that we'll hope to share with you. It's called Clouds Are Pillars to the Moon. And so we'll hopefully look at how we can integrate the spirit and the soul of Native Americans. And I think he's super qualified for this because inheriting him and his experience growing up in this country is a knowledge of being kicked to the curb, so to speak, and marginalized as a people, and bouncing back and finding resilience and fighting back to become dignified and whole as a person, despite the challenges and the abuses and the crimes that's been leveled against he and his people. I think another quality he has is that he possesses some inherent values, some inherent characteristics that kind of predispose him to be more open and more willing and more integrated in his thinking and working with others. We're going to deal a little bit more with his personal life and his own personal values, you'll see for what I'm saying is very true. He'll be our first guest, and that'll be tomorrow night, beginning at 6:30. And we'll look at how we can go from multi-ethnic to interethnic, and from multicultural to intercultural. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. I met him in 2016 in St. Paul, Minnesota, part of the Art Equity Group. And so he's still a part of that and doing some wonderful things. So I think you'll be amazed and satisfied to see that we have hope in our future coming from a corner of the world that has been neglected and despised and disposed of in so many ways. So let's welcome Ty Defoe with us on tomorrow night, beginning at 6:30. On the following course, our second course will be a conversation between two dynamite people, separated by maybe 4 decades. And so we're going to talk about how can we forge intergenerational bridges? How can we bring this Z generation along with the older folks, like from, what do they call us? The baby boomers. So looking at how we can learn from each other, how can we respect each other, listen to each other more, and develop the ties that can carry us forward. John Fullerwander is a native of Dallas, and he is an activist from day one, back in the 70s and 80s, working in so many different ways in the East Dallas community, helping to correct some of the housing injustices there. And now today he's leading the fight along with others in the Mothers Against Police Brutality. He's also leading a fight to end the Confederate monuments and put them down in the museum, away from telling the lies and promoting racism as they do in our very faces today. He is very active. He's a member of the board of the South Dallas Cultural Center. He's on the board of the so many Mothers Against Police Brutality, and I'm honored to he'll be with us then. The person who'll be sharing the conversation with him is Ileana Valdez. I met Ileana maybe in 2014 when she was a high school student in the Oak Cliff area. She became active in a School of Yes, which is a product of Academia Theater, which brings together young people throughout the summer to learn and hone their skills in art and leadership and being how to become more confident in expressing themselves. She led the way. She was a very inspiring person then and is to date now. She was active in a student council at high school, town hall magnet for criminal justice, I believe. She carried on as a big sister to the young people in the School of Yes. She innovated some conversations and some rituals with the young people, 5, 6, 7 years old, that helped them to become more open and celebratory about where they were and about their own energies and their talents. She now is a senior at Yale University. She's majoring in computer science, and she's devoted to helping students who've been displaced. She founded a nonprofit startup organization to help get college students from being displaced to becoming more active and more support centered in their life pursuits. I had a chance to talk with her a couple of years ago. She visited East Africa to Rwanda, where there was a horrific genocide in 1994, I believe. She was able to go there and see how the people have rebuilt, how they began to heal and repair the wounds and become a nation again, not separate tribes battling and competing against each other. She visited again several years later. So I'm anxious to hear about her experiences in visiting Rwanda and her experience working in Yale with youth students. And now she's back in Dallas preparing for a final exam for a senior year at Yale. So we'll have them join us on, that'll be December the 3rd, which is a Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Each of these courses will begin at 6:30 and go up to 8 p.m. that night. I hope we'll incorporate within each course some graphic arts, as well as perhaps some music and other expressions. So as well as a heartfelt conversation between us all. So that is the second course that we'll be engaged in. I hope you'll join us for that. The third course will be taking place on Tuesday, December the 8th. Dr. Robert Hunt, who is a professor at SMU, Perkins School of Theology, is a renowned leader in the field of world religions and knowledge. He teaches a course in world religions. He's been a faithful devotee of embracing many cultures and many different religions. He works among Christians and helping develop ecumenical movement and bring about a wholeness, which he said has been faltering in many different ways. He also has lived in the Philippines where he worked with Muslim communities. He has taught in the seminary in Malaysia. He is president. He'll be in Vienna, Austria when we talk to him on his night. He'll be there visiting his children and his grandchildren who live in Vienna. He just for the holidays. So we're going to continue, hopefully make that work with the Wi-Fi system they have there. But I'm excited to have him because he's very open to going out of the box, beyond the boundaries, beyond the kind of bubbles that we place ourselves in when it comes to our faith and our religions. So he's blurring the line, so to speak, finding ways that we can find agreement and be common ground to go forward working together. And so I'm really looking forward to his knowledge and the light he brings to that subject. He'll be with us on that day, which is Tuesday, I think the 9th of December. And I'm honored to have him. He was recommended to me by Dr. Ruben Habito, who joined us in our first round of exchanges. And I think they both are at SMU School of Theology and have become cohorts working together to bring light wherever they go. So I'm excited about him being a part of this show as well. We're going to take it on home with our final session with a local person named Eva Ataguin. Eva is a super duper lady who has really helped inspire me. She founded a podcast that became known and recognized by, I think it was a local newspaper. If I find my notes. Through the Dallas Observer as the best podcast in 2019. She founded that group where they have discussions and conversations and think out of the box about what's happening in the world today. She has been a fighter for justice in Oak Cliff. She has been a community builder, bringing different sectors together throughout not only South Oak Cliff, but throughout Dallas. She works for Big Thought as her daytime work, but she's 24/7 doing all kinds of wonderful things. So I'm delighted to have her on board with us. Eva will be sort of wrapping up the courses. She'll be tuned in and listening to each one, and then she'll have questions, I'm sure. She'll be able to share her perspective on how all of these different components that we're talking about, from culture and ethnicities to generational gaps and to faith gaps, and talking about how she responds to that. So I'm looking for a lively conversation with Eva to help bring us on home and help close out and get hopefully some really kind of consensus on what we're learning together. To be honest with you, we don't have the answers. We're not rolling out any formula or any solutions per se, but I hope we'll be able to help point in the direction that will lead to light, to lead to better understanding, to help us to kind of figure out where we are, what can we do to really reach out and help merge our struggles and our personal lives with others. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm really excited about this. We're on some new ground, looking forward to post-election results and looking forward to 2021. Where do we go from here? What is the outcome of this movement that we saw rise and stir people's hearts and minds during the spring and the summer? Where are we now after the election? Where are we now with going into another winter, maybe a third wave of this pandemic, that we need to buckle up and be prepared and stand, protect ourselves and have good health throughout. So many things happening today. And I'm hoping that these 3-4 courses that we'll go through will help us become better armed, so to speak, better equipped, so to speak, have the skills or knowledge or maybe some better questions to raise to help reflect on and help guide us through this next period we're going through. I'm reading a book now that's been very exciting. I want to just share with you. It's called Begin Again, and it's about the life of James Baldwin and some of his brilliant thoughts and teachings and lessons and experiences that he brought with us. I think it's called Let's Begin or Just Begin. And one thing in it he talks about is a reoccurring theme of Jimmy Baldwin, and it's that after events, what happens after the U.S. Constitution and the nation was formed? Did we go forward? Did we go backward? What happened after the Civil War? Did we go forward? Did we go? There were after times. The civil rights movement was virtually slaughtered in the late 60s and 70s. And then we, after high rise and going forward, creating the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. But then there came the Reagan administration following that, where we, the whole new system of mass incarceration. So these are after times. I'm hoping we'll go through some fresh, beautiful times, but there are always repressions and repercussions that come from each one of those. So we need to learn from our past, figure out we can go forward. I recommend that book to you as well. So I'm going to zip up my mouth for a moment and just pause and think for a moment and see if you have any suggestions, any ideas, any questions that you think might be infused in our upcoming discussion, or any questions at all that you may have. I stand ready to listen to you and your thoughts. I did that good? Come on now. I doubt that seriously. Ed, what's going through your brain right now, my brother?
The things that you just was explaining to us, it sounds quite exciting. It's good to know that there's different cultures that's coming together, something that has been missing for ages or have been missed, period. I think that we're at a time where we are trying to sit and listen to each other. I think it's important at this time of our life.
Yeah, I think listening
That's all I can say.
No, that's powerful. I think the listening is the most powerful gift we can give anyone right now, the gift of listening and see what other people are saying. And being open-minded to receive without prejudgment. So I think that's an excellent point you raised. And thank you for bringing that up. Thank you.
I don't think we would be here listening to this if we wasn't interested. I think when we look at what's going on in society today, it's not only here in America, it's the world. You know, wherever you're from, it's in your world and it's in this world. So we really have some waking up to do and trying to really integrate with each other. What can we do? What can we make better? You know, I think Kathy knows how I feel when we're riding down the street in our cars and we come to red lights and we see these homeless. Just shouldn't be here in America. Just shouldn't be, particularly here in America. We shouldn't have folks, no place to stay, no place, nothing to eat, and they're on the corner. About a month ago, I was coming down the street and I saw this Asian couple. I was shocked to see this. But then as I went maybe about 20 feet more driving, they had their baby in this box. And you know, and Kathy could tell you, my heart just dropped. I come to tears when I see that. It just shouldn't be. Just shouldn't be.
Yeah, and then the end of this month, end of December, those protections extended by the federal government meant to prevent people from being evicted, from being displaced, ends. And there are already apartment complexes that are already evicting folks before that happens. There was a food drive recently, just where people were giving away turkeys. And people were saying, I can't even take this turkey because I don't have a place to cook it. I don't have an oven. I have nowhere to take it. So it's going to be something we've never seen before. I don't think the depression in the 30s will come anywhere close to what we could possibly see unless some resolute, positive action take place to support people. I have a dear friend named Sandy Rollins who works with the North Texas Tennis Association. She said already every day hundreds of people are being evicted. This is even before the end of December when the so-called security protections against evictions end. So we're in for a ride, and the misery is going to increase unless some direct support and some awakening take place from the top and the bottom. Have mercy.
Amen.
Bouncing off what Ed said about the intercultural aspect, I think we as a people of the world have to see the oneness in us. And I'm so glad to see the power behind various cultures coming together, because during the 60s, when we were activists, we might have seen many scatters, well, small scatters of people. But as the power that be, the capitalists like to keep us separated. But I'm so proud that we have broken the barrier down, and we are becoming one people, one voice within the oneness of us, that's power for all people of color and gender, etc.
Yeah, I think that the home teachings, parent education, the media, the politicians have played and kept the light of ignorance on too long.
Mm-hmm.
So we only see the surface of our humanity. We don't go beyond the skin, so it's underneath the skin that we're all the same. So how can we help create a light, a understanding, a willingness to look beyond this stereotypical, one-sided, superficial education we've been getting on all levels? I'm happy to see where people are looking at new narratives for our history too, and beginning to read, define, and tell the truth about our history. That's something, because I was raised up at a time where they said Black people were happy slaves, and we'd like to be on the plantation, so that was an education I got as a young man. And so now seeing that revised, so I'm hoping that what you're saying, Kathy, is going to be magnified and brought forth even stronger, because we got so much negative habitual activities, and thoughts and thinking about people and relationships that's going to take, I don't know what to take to wake up more people to make this change, because we're going to need a critical mass to go forward. And to me, if you have 70, 80 million people voting for Donald Trump, I'm sorry, we don't have the critical mass yet to make that change. What is it going to take to reach that diehard, backward thinking person who underneath all of that is just fearful, but they're being manipulated from their fear to be mean folks to hurt others as a response to that fear. So I want to just ask Poonam, if you don't mind talking a little bit about how you see us getting to this core, this open heart that's in everybody, beyond the layer of hatred. Beneath all of those layers is some genuine God-sent spirit, isn't it? How can we waken that up? Do you see any hope for us in the school of education? You at DISD, do you see any light being shined from that level?
I think that the pandemic is really a tool for that in a lot of ways, because it's forcing us to kind of confront our shared humanity and our shared fears and our shared hopes in a way that we haven't had to in a really long time. And so I think the more we are just present with one another and try to understand the story of the person in front of us. And one of my favorite quotes of all times is, "You cannot hate a man whose story you know." And I think that story is really where our connection lies. Story is the thing that it's been the tool for us to share and learn for as long as we've had the ability to talk. And so to hear one another's stories and narratives, and to pay close attention and to be open, I think, to letting ourselves be changed by some of those stories, and thinking of it as learning, as kind of like a deep human learning, that when we listen to someone, really we should be changed. We should be changed by every interaction that we have with someone. And if we're not, maybe we're not paying close enough attention. And so I definitely see a lot of capacity for that. And I see people paying really close attention to one another in my department, at Dallas ISD and at the schools that I work in. And so I think there's so much hope for that. But it also comes down to that kind of individual spark, just like all of us have that individual spark of divinity, individual spark of life. There has to be that individual spark for wanting to reach out towards another person and to learn and to be moved.
Yeah. Pardon me for pressing the point a little bit, Poonam, but I'm curious about some examples or maybe stories you've seen because of the hardship of the pandemic that help people come closer together. Is there something, some example of that you can share with us? Not necessarily giving by his name and thing, but just how this hardship creates a hope, in a way through this. I'm just curious about how you see that unfolding.
Yeah. I think, I'm just kind of thinking about people that I know that either have contracted COVID or their family members have, and some of them have lost individuals in their families, and just the pain and the fear that we're all experiencing, and definitely paying attention to the idea that it has impacted certain communities of more impoverished and or Black or brown communities more than others. There is kind of like that socioeconomic factor to it, but at the same time, our own president contracted it, and so it's something that no one is completely safe from. And in that way, it's kind of like none of us gets out of life alive. And this is kind of a real reckoning that we're having to have with ourselves and with each other, that, yeah, like no matter what kind of farces we put up, no matter what we kind of hide behind in terms of title or education or wealth or whatever it is, we are still tied by this fear, by loss, by kind of the collective grieving. And it is really important that we engage in the collective grieving because that's part of our shared humanity. But then also the collective hope that, there's going to be a time when the pandemic ends. There's going to be a moment where we'll be able to hug our loved ones freely again. There's going to be a moment where, we can gather and dance again in public. So we're also united by those hopes too. And I think as much as possible, when we are able to focus on that kind of brings our essential humanity together.
Yeah. Wow. It's interesting to realize how something as terrible and destructive as the pandemic can become a sense of equalizer and a sense of an opening up of understanding, a new understanding about life. So it's the mystery of life going forward. I participated in a conversation recently called looking at collective trauma. I never thought about trauma beyond African-American enslavement, but it's collective trauma in the sense that it's passed down from generation to generation to generation. And and our ancestors were traumatized, and their memory is traumatized in a way because we can't even recall them or summon them up in our minds and hearts. So, but the conversation on collective trauma opened up my eyes to looking at Native American, looking at people of different sexual orientation, or looking at people because of their size or because of their color of their skin or their language are traumatized. So, and those kind of things kind of bind us. So I saw a kind of a pulling together certain people, a kind of, I understand, and I can see yours, and I have empathy now because I can relate to what you've gone through in a way, and I can share my hurt with you, and it becomes kind of a way of triggering a kind of unprogrammed healings. Little things starts happening in a way. So I'm hoping we can find healing, not only ending the pandemic, but ending the hatred and the fears as well through this trouble. So thank you for expressing that point. Thank you.
Definitely. And I would just say, as you were talking, one thing stood out to me is, yes, there's the collective trauma, and then there's also the collective resilience that people have, and that the African American population, the Native American population, there is a resilience there that they're still here. They're still fighting. They're still trying to make, trying to assert their innate power. And that is beautiful. And that is the other thing that we can, keep in mind, is not just to remember the hurt, but remember how strong we all are.
Yeah. I work with a young man in his 30s, and I asked him about voting, and he said, "Vote for what?" He said, "No disrespect to your generation for what y'all did in the 60s and all that, but it's all a game. It doesn't make a difference." It was a sense of a hopelessness and uselessness of this whole thing. And so I'm wondering how we can help cultivate that sense of resilience, of not giving up, not quitting, more with our younger generation who's really kind of thrown in the towel, saying, this is all a game, it's all a trick bag, and from the top to the bottom, and you can't win. I said, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna manage? What's your answer? He said, well, I can't go to Africa. I can't, they're doing the same thing over there. So he just kind of resigned himself, just look inside his little box, and just make it from day to day, and not link up with anybody. Just kind of make enough money to pay my rent, get my car note, take care of my family. That's just limited to that little world, so to speak, but important world, of course. So I felt at a loss for just trying to reach out to just kind of bounce back from what he said, because it just shook me, it staggered me to saying, there's like a deadness about the future. I wonder if anybody else is experiencing it. Kathy, you dealing with young women who are pregnant, and Jackie, you dealing with older folks who kind of giving up too, in a way. I'm just wondering if y'all seen any tools that we can use, that we can maybe bring out in our discussion about how can we cultivate more sense of resilience or hope moving forward. I don't know, sometimes it's like
I'm sorry. No. Sometimes I think what you're saying, you were speaking to one individual, and you're listening to that voice of that one person and thinking that many 30-year-olds feel that way. But I would like to recall your mind to the peaceful demonstrations that we've seen across the country, across the world, and you yourself as a political activist who was in his 20s, maybe teens when you started, you're still being resilient. That voice of that one person that you heard was that one person's voice. And we, as people who are listening, or people who are looking at the world, we have to keep the hope within ourselves and not necessarily just see that one person as being a representation of a multitude of people. Remember that picture you sent the family of that one flower blooming through the concrete. That flower was resilient. So I don't think we as a family or we as a people of a family should look at one instance and think we have people who are not resilient. Like Puman, I might be pronouncing her name incorrectly, but as she stated, we are resilient. We can't continue. We have to find the positive. I was trying to look into the chat box and send her a note and say, thank you for being positive. And that's what we have to look at, that energy of those young people who are in the street throughout the world. I wonder, where are they now? How are they accepting everything? But I'd like to think that they are forming their own clusters of answers. So it might be that just that one person you might need to call in or let him just examine with him, how resilient he has been, that 30-year-old, because he's not the answer to everything.
I hear you. And I'm hopefully I'm not doing that too often about taking one person and blowing up to all. But it just struck me because such a lively mind, such a healthy body, such a future ahead of him, and already thrown in the towel. And so I kind of look at, we have levels of thoughts and level of thinking and levels of action. We have people who are very advanced, who are organizing demonstrations, who are rallying people together, who are raising the flag, so to speak. We have people in the lower than that who are trying to create and fumbling around doing their best. Then we have people in the middle who are just kind of undecided. And then we have people on the bottom who just going the other way, So maybe I shouldn't concentrate on them, as I hear you saying, but look at the middle and the upper activists and so forth and see how we can keep this chain transmitting on down and reaching out further and further. And then there's a lot of things happening beyond our control, of course. And this young man made something that might just snap him to wake up tomorrow to a truth. And I was just wanting to be that person to help him wake up, and I couldn't find the words to reach him. And that just kind of frustrated me because there was no answer because his life experience was speaking for itself.
But you might have been, and sometimes in those instances, we as educators, we as parents, we might not see that our child or the children have received the answer immediately, but it's a burning thought in their head, and it's a wheel spinning. What did Mr. McMillan say? Blah, blah, blah. You can even do that with daddy, mama, rest of our elders in our family. We might not have been obedient or being aware at that moment, but later on in life, we have, this is what they meant. So forge ahead, my brother.
Thank you for that light. Thank you.
Ernest, I would also add to that, that I think also that young man's response is totally reasonable. There are some really dark things that people have seen and experienced. And to kind of understand it from like the brain science perspective, it makes sense that right now our brains are having a hard time thinking about long-term futures because we're dealing with a really immediate threat kind of all around us. And so, I think also acknowledging that that's okay to feel that way and to remember that those feelings don't last. That the very nature of the world is to change. And even if that young man cannot be at the forefront, he is still part of the collective change. And maybe it's not right now, maybe right now he's being carried. And at some point it'll be his time when he has the inner resources to come forward and push. That'll be his role, and he'll carry someone else. But that's kind of the interconnection that we all have as well, that it's all okay. Whatever we're feeling is okay. And no matter what, he's still on this journey with us. Even if all he can do is just kind of make it day by day, he's still with us.
Thank you. Wow. I'm learning and taking notes and getting all kind of perspective here today. I'm sensing we have a sense of collective wisdom here gathered in our little universe gathered here tonight around the Zoom. So thank you all for contributing to that and listening and presenting and being present with us tonight. I'm honored to do that. I'm hoping you'll stick with us. I hope it can be the next several courses. Hope you can get out the word about it if you'd like to. Just know that we just keep hitting at it. As Poonam and Kathy reminded me, and Ed also reminded me, we just got to keep hitting at it, that things are going to change. That things are changing, though we may not be able to see it right now. So, so we don't control anything at all, really, but we just do our part as best we can. So I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, we may not see what we vision or what our mission might be, but the courses that you all have put together, that's a stepping stone. Because it's so broad and there are so many people to reach. And until we can eliminate racism, sexism, the caste system, the ideology of the Confederacy, and until all of that is eliminated, that would be a perfect world. So we're living in an imperfect world, as we know, but as you all have all said earlier, that we know there is hope. We have that hope and we have that faith. And as long as there are people out there like, all of you who are rallying in for a change, a change that is so much needed to go forward. And the need, because I keep thinking in my head, we have a great need for a diverse and multi-ethnic democracy. We have immigrants here. We have every nationality, practically, gender identity, people, everybody is here in this world. It's a global issue. But until we can all eliminate those barriers, that hatred, that racism, and just put in some hope, faith, being just the basics of being kind. Those are all ways to start stepping up to the plate and getting rid of all of these negative things that we might not be able to see it in our lifetime, but maybe our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren will be able to see, a perfect world or a perfect democracy. But I'm just thankful that that current occupant in the White House is leaving. But what frightens me is all of those 7 millions of people that voted for him. But anyway, with the courses that you have here and all that inclusion, those are the things that need to be done to get us to that, perfect society or good, kind, world to live in. But we have the hope. I do.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm reminded of a person I know, maybe several persons in this category who were dope fiends, drug addicts, who obsessed with crack cocaine or heroin or both. And they did not quit until they hit rock bottom. They're giving up all hope, so to speak, before they got their act together and started coming up from that. So I'm just wondering, even on the other side of hope is hopelessness, but on the other side of that is hope again, of coming back. So it took him and her, all of those folks that I know from in that category personally, to hit rock bottom before they started coming back up again. So maybe as Poonam was saying, that even though the pandemic is awful, that there is some way it can serve humanity and uplift us up. So I'm just kind of in wonder about this process and that we never give up. And even when we do give up, there's still a bounce back can happen. So, it's never ending in a sense. So I just appreciate all the wise thoughts, Jackie, Kathy, Ed, Poonam, thank you, Cheyenne, all of you for contributing to that. We're prepared to go on and on and on if you like. So let us know.
Can I
Yes, please.
can I just say something
Yes.
about what we overlook in our society? It's the arts. The arts has been very important here in the world. I mean, from William Shakespeare right up to August Wilson. I grew up in Philadelphia. I hung out with jazz and musicians who gave me certain books to read. These were guys who were smoking pot, yet on the weekends they would be playing jazz and Charlie Parker and all of that. But they were reading, they were investigating, they were looking for ways of changing the music, in which they did. I mean, from Charlie Parker to Miles Davis, right up to Pharoah Sanders and all. And we were looking at the arts as just a form of entertainment. I was fortunate to teach at a university for 28 years as a professor, not because I had a PhD, it's because I was an artist. And I did my studying about the history of African-American theater. Now that African-American theater class wasn't just for African-Americans. The University of Buffalo had that class it was open. It first was in the African-American Studies department, then they put it in the theater department, and then all of a sudden, everyone was coming to this Black theater class. Now I have writers. I have a certain writer up in Pittsburgh. She's white, and she always sending me these messages that she's so glad that she took a course with me and she learned this and she learned that, and she's doing very well as an artist. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't think the artist, we look at the art as a form of entertainment. We want to sing, dance, and all of that, but it's bigger than that. It deals with the history of it. I was with James Baldwin when he was in Buffalo, and the chair asked me to be with him. And we were talking about Blues for Mr. Charlie, the play that he wrote. And he was trying to explain how that play dealt with a young Black male, who made faces or tried to play her. And he was killed for that. You know who that was. And he made this a big play, courtroom scenes that took place, showing how we as Black people wasn't getting rights, in jury. He showed all of that. And these are the things that I look at. I look at, there's a white writer, Bethel Fugart in South Africa. He wrote a play about the homeless, two people homeless. And this is back in the 60s, the early 60s. Two people whose homes were taken away from them because they were white. And these are things that not only Blacks were studying, but whites. And so I thought that was a positive move, and it's still a positive move. I think we as artists, we do have stories to tell. We do have research to do. And once our research is out there, we say, look, come and see us. Come see our dance. Come hear our words. So I think that we really need to look at the artists as well in today's society. Yeah. I can't talk too well because I just come from the hospital. The doctor told me to stay off my voice.
You sounded good to me, bro. I'm hearing you. Look, I just want to echo something you said and just share a personal experience as well. During the 60s, working in the South with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee up and through the Black Power era in the 60s in Dallas and beyond, we always kind of put art and political action on separately. We had the community canvassers and organizers over here doing voter registration work and the artists over there. And there was no intertwining dynamic between us per se. But now I'm seeing how the world is bringing those together. There's a movement called art equity. Academy is a good example of that as well, how art has become more useful as a transformative tool in our tool chest. You know, so I'm saying not only acting, poetry, music, writing. I've seen young people in the juvenile detention center here in Dallas transform through art, dancing, and creative learning and creative writing course. Help them to get themselves together and take on a new role and so forth. In the Southern Theater in the South during the 60s, the Highlander School, all of these efforts brought art to the forefront. And now it's more of a collective teamwork between the art and the politics, become more one. So it's amazing how powerful art is and how it can be utilized. Just the music that served us in the 60s helped us to keep alive, keep the hope going to move forward. The mass rallies we had with the freedom songs help us to regroup ourselves after marches that the police would beat us down and give us the courage and the strength to go back out there again and again. So you're absolutely right. I hope we can raise art in more and more to become a collaborative effort with activism. And I'm seeing that happening today. Thank you for bringing that up. I see smiles. Okay, but look, I thank you so much. I've said it 3 times, but I'm gonna keep on thanking you and thanking you and thanking you. And hope you'll join us on Tuesday, that's tomorrow night, where we have Ty Defoe with us. He's amazing, and I hope I get some of his music out of him, some of his poetry. He does Native American dancing as well. I know we can get that on Zoom, but I wanna just tap into him as much as we can and get his experience. There's this ingredient I hope we can explore a little bit called, what's it called, Kathy? Twin spirits, 2 spirits. So this whole thing about being non-binary lifestyle is what he's going to share with us too. So I'm looking forward to the light he brings with us tomorrow. And after that with John Fullenwider and Ileana Valdez. And then after that with Robert Hunt, and then wrapping it up with Eva Araguin. So hope you hang with us through the end. And there's a survey we can share so we can learn from what you take on. Feel comfortable about expressing yourself on those surveys. So help us keep refining and fine tuning and getting more down to earth with what's real in the world today. Shannon, do you have anything you'd like to say or offer that we may have left out?
No, I think you hit it all. I've already told you, I think that these conversations are honestly some of the most important that we need to be having right now, is just learning to speak with one another. I know personally some of my own biases are strongly with like people that are older than me. I feel like that's one of our most important conversations to have, learning for our elders and young people to speak together, and learning of course across cultures. We've seen that a lot lately. But I still think we struggle with like intergenerational and we struggle with intercultural as well. So I'm very excited to hear all these conversations. It's one of the things I love about my job is I get to learn all of these different things that we get to do, get to meet all of these brilliant people and share with all of these beautiful souls. So I'm so excited to hear about all of that. I do quickly want to say, if you all want to join in on the Zoom, the link that I had sent out to those that are here now will still work. But if you aren't sure if you signed up for the entire course or whatnot, just go ahead and send me an email and we can check. And then we can for sure sign you up for free for the course. Anybody who's watching over on Facebook and maybe would like to join in the actual Zoom room and be here to present and speaking with all of us, just go over to academiatheater.org and you can scroll into I think it's under our 25th season, and then it's in our community care circles. But I will copy a link in the comment section, and it is in the description of Facebook Live as well, where you can and we will send for you if you want to join in on these conversations that we'll be having. It's a wonderful lineup of people, and I really look forward to the conversation to have. Also, anybody who's here now or has been watching on Facebook, please encourage your friends and family to join as well. As I've already stated, I think valuable conversations that we need to be having right now so that we can forge a greater future and a stronger community altogether. So again, thank you, Ernest, and thank you who joined us.
Thank you all thank you for making it happen, Cheyenne. Appreciate it. See you tomorrow night, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Peace. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.